Welcome as we look at the Gospel of John with eyes for Generation Z. My name is Tanita Maddox, and we're going to read through the Gospel of John, keeping in mind 6 key questions that Generation Z is asking based on their values and worldview, and 2 key questions they're asking about God. The goal of this project is to uncover and share a relevant Bible reading and gospel to Generation Z. We're in John 11. Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. We're going to jump through this passage in a few places just because of its length. We're going to address these questions. Can I trust you? Which will tie to the question, is God good? We'll also answer the questions, will you accept me? Which ties to the question, am I safe? So we're going to start at verse 17, where Jesus is arriving to Mary and Martha's home, and Lazarus has already been buried for about 4 days. Verse 20, we have Martha heard that Jesus was coming, and she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. It's like Mary is so mad, so hurt, feels so abandoned by God that she can't even look at Jesus, so she stays behind. But when Mary does come out, what's interesting is that both Mary and Martha use the same words when they speak to Jesus. In verse 21, Martha says to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Then when we jump down to verse 32, and Mary gets to Jesus, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Both say, if you had been here, this would not have happened. Their picture of a good God is a God who would have prevented this from ever happening. Maybe there are places in our life where we blame God for not showing up. If you had been here, this would not have happened. We have this idea that a good God means bad things don't happen. Hard things don't happen, at least to us. Jesus does not yell at Mary and Martha or shame them or rebuke them for their anger or for their pain. Instead, he asks to go to the tomb with them. This starts to get into the question, am I safe and will you accept me? We might think that a good God would have prevented the death of Lazarus from the very beginning. In verse 33, when Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled and asked, where have you laid him? He asked to go to the tomb where Lazarus has been buried. And when he does, he weeps. He weeps alongside Mary and those who are weeping and mourning and grieving the death of Lazarus. We might think that a good God would have prevented the death from the very beginning. But here what we see is if Jesus is God, then a good God enters into our grief alongside with us. A good God sits next to us in the hard moments. But also if Jesus is God, he would have known what he was going to do next. He was going to raise Lazarus from the dead, and he could have said, hey, it's going to be fine. Stop crying. He could have discounted the feelings and the experience of the people in that moment because he knew he was going to do something amazing and great right after that. So am I safe? Will you accept me? God can handle our anger when we go to him. He can handle our pain when we go to him. We can process our sadness, our anger, our grief with him. And in this story, we see through Jesus that God will accept us in our pain and anger and not understanding, and that we are safe with him in that. He will not shame us or rebuke us or yell at us for having such feelings. Instead, what we see through Jesus in this passage is that a good God sits with us, is next to us, and does not leave us alone in the hardest moments, maybe the darkest moments of our lives. You are valued by God. Your feelings are valued by God. In your hard moments, God is with you. And in this hard moment, God even cried next to Mary. There may have been times we've said to God, if you had been here, this wouldn't have happened. God will accept you when you're angry and you have questions. Mary and Martha loved God. They loved Jesus, and they were disappointed with him. Both things can exist at the same time. God will accept you. God is a safe place for both of those things to exist at the same time. Can I trust you? Is God good? Could you be open to the idea that God's goodness is that he is with us and gives us space to feel our feelings, to ask our questions, to bring our angers and our doubt to? The goodness of God is not necessarily that he prevents hard things from happening, but that he is with us in the middle of those hard things. In verses 35 to 44, Jesus goes on to raise Lazarus from the dead. This amazing thing was going to happen. He knew it was going to happen. He had a plan. And still in that moment, lets Mary experience her full grief. He experiences grief in that moment and does not belittle or devalue the questions, the pain, the anger that they have in that moment, even knowing what he was going to do next. When hard things happen and we are angry because we think God should have stopped this, where were you? If you were here, this wouldn't have happened. It makes us not want to trust God because we don't understand how could this be good. Instead, could we be open to the idea that God's goodness is not that we don't experience hard things or even things we don't understand? The goodness of God is that he is with us every step of the way, says that our processes, our questions, our feelings are valuable, and he will sit with us.